He held the gun 2 feet in front of my face and he told me he was going to kill me. And it was the scariest yet most freeing moment of my life, because it then sent me on this journey of healing and really discovering the truth of not only who I was, but the truth of what relationship could be.
So our intention is not who's right, it's what's right. It's what's going to be the greatest thing to bring more love, more healing, more light, more peace into our lives, more safety into our nervous system. But let me just tell you something. Someone that's aggressive is not considered masculine because they're not safe. By definition, masculinity is safe. They are the ones that protect you from the lion. They don't become the lion.
Yes. Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you? I have such special guests on today, and it is Henry and Terrin Ammar. And I will have to explain who they each are individually. So I'm going to begin with Terrin, who I can call my friend. Terrin Ali Ammar, the founder of the Queen Kollective, is a certified trauma-informed practitioner, a business professional and mentor to women across the country whose mission is to inspire, encourage, and empower them to heal their trauma, embody their feminine confidence, and step into the queen they were made to be. As a former Division I women's basketball player, former single mom who built a multi-seven-figure business, wellness expert, mom of two, and abuse survivor, Terrin has dedicated her life to helping women transform their lives, to help them get unstuck, understand their behavior patterns, and heal their traumas so they can live a joy-filled and passionate life. Terrin started helping women achieve their goals back in 2014 when she was executive in sales leadership for a $70 million organization where she created her first personal development program for women called the WILD program, which stood for Women in Leadership Development. I am so proud to have her on this show. As a business professional and sales executive during some of the hardest years of her life, Terrin still managed to overcome the odds and build a multi-seven-figure business. She also managed and trained the sales force for a $65 million organization, created a women's leadership program for one of the best retailers in the world that is still being utilized today, founded and is the CEO of the Queen Kollective, is a certified, which we know, trauma-informed practitioner, and she was also a former fitness competitor, and she has developed numerous transformative wellness programs for women. I am so grateful to have her as a friend, as a guest on the show. She's an incredible woman. She's survived numerous traumatic experiences in her life, including being a survivor of domestic violence. Terrin dove into the deep work, the inner work, to learn, to heal, and discover her purpose, and is now sharing her wisdom to help women. She embarked on a personal journey of growth and healing years ago when she decided it was time to step into her true power. She spent hours, tens of thousands of dollars, and tremendous amount of work into programs and mentors to be able to serve others at the highest level of her career, home, and life. This is where Terrin's passion for the effects of trauma on the masculine-feminine dynamic was born. Terrin's greatest accomplishment in life was becoming the mother of her two daughters, Peyton Allie and Joelle Madison. Terrin also found love again and married the love of her life, human behavior and subconscious reprogramming expert, Henry Ammar. Now I'm going to introduce Henry Ammar, who is just incredible. So this is Terrin's husband, and I'm looking forward to you hearing about him as well. He's an incredible man. This show is about Henry and Terrin Ammar. And they are joining forces to help couples, singles, and everyone who wants to create relationships filled with deeper love, passion, intimacy, and understanding. As a therapist owning counseling centers, one of the things I am sure of is that you can even hear it in music, you can hear it everywhere. One of the largest struggles we see with every human being is relationship issues and their identity with their own selves. And what Henry and Terrin are doing is they're using cutting edge, unique methodology that combines trauma-informed healing with the advanced principles of masculine, feminine attraction to help all men, women, and couples and singles step into a more loving connection. They use a holistic approach, holistic movement towards masculine and feminine integration that serves men who want to step into their masculinity, women who want to step into their femininity, couples who've disconnected and want to reignite their fiery attraction, singles looking to attract the right partner to build a powerfully loving, deeply intimate life. So I am beyond thrilled to have these two on this show. I feel like what they have to offer is something that you may not hear anywhere else. And they each individually and as a couple are going to bring you to another place. So I ask that if, just really focus in, get out a pen and pad, listen to it more than once. I would really, ask that you like, subscribe, and follow them because they are incredible humans and very, very genuine. So without any further ado, here they are. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. As I mentioned in the 3-hour biography with my friends, Terrin and Henry, I mentioned that they are absolute superstars and the length of success that they both have had is incredible. But the reason that they're here is not even because of that. The reason that I have them here, it's because I love them. And that is the honest truth. I met them at an event and Henry happened to speak at this event, but he is a dazzling light. And I wouldn't just say that. Like every word kind of changed me. Like literally, like the words carried frequency in his talk. I never told you that, but that is true. And this incredible woman next to him is like I don't even know, a force to be reckoned with, just of goodness, of light, of excellence. Just there's so much to these two people. So the reason that I asked them to come on together is because I feel a very strong mission toward the information that's being shared in our culture about marriages, about relationships, about men and women. And I think that I had an amazing relationship that I will stand forever on. Like, I know it's possible. Maybe prior to that relationship, I wasn't sure of it because I was conditioned, just like everyone else, that relationships are adversarial, that men and women speak badly about one another. All you have to do is go to any bus stop and talk to any mom and complain about a guy, and you're going to get a crowd, an angry mob to share with you. So basically, I asked Henry and Terrin to come on because their marriage is beautiful. And they believe the same thing. And I'm just going to ask them to share because all they have to do is talk and you're going to be changed. So welcome, both of you, Henry and Terrin. I'm so glad you're here. I love you both so much.
Love you too. Thank you for having us.
You're so giving.
If anybody is listening and hasn't met you, I just want to attest to the heart and the love that exudes out of Alison. And I literally said this before, so I'll say it to everybody. So much love and so much heart and everything she said to us. And if you're listening, anything you see in anybody else, if you spot it, you got it. What you see in somebody else is really inside of you. And so whatever goodness you see in us is actually because it's inside of you. And so we appreciate you. And anybody listening, thanks for listening. We're going to have this conversation. It's really fun.
Absolutely. I was thinking, I'm like, we've got to see each other at a couple events now. And when I saw you at the second one, I just lit up because you were there. We both were so excited to see you because you exude, like, you are literally an angel in human form, in my belief. You just have this light and this love and this energy that I wish so many people could experience in person.
Yeah.
It's one thing to experience you on here. And so we're just to attest to the fact that if you haven't met this amazing, gorgeous, beautiful,
Oh,
inside and out woman, she is just as warm
Absolutely.
as you could imagine. So
Absolutely. I
well,
literally
I
text
could end the podcast now. I have everything I need.
Thanks for joining us in this
Thank
podcast.
you.
All
This
right.
really was about me today. This is good. Okay. Thank you both. It actually really means a lot to me. I needed that today. Really. Thank you. So, wow, that's good. Uh, anyhow, so what I would love for everybody to hear is how each of you individually came to these, I don't know, this height of success. But as I was just talking about on another podcast, is that I feel like our real talent gets hidden, behind all these successes, and our real education is the kind of the different tragedies, traumas we climb out of, and the muscles we build on the way out. So I just would love to hear how you guys got to be where you are, what challenges helped you to arrive here.
Well, I'll go first, I guess. So I grew up a farm girl. Actually, we were just talking about how we're on the farm right now. So we're kind of like a Hallmark Channel movie where it's like city boy falls in love with country girl. And he comes to the farm and he's like, I can't press a button to start
I
a
have to
fire.
put wood in that thing
Yeah.
to stay
The
warm.
nerve.
Yeah, right. But I grew up a small town country girl and was an athlete. If I was a Spice Girl, I definitely would be Sporty Spice. And going through life, I was taught, just as you were mentioning, so many things about what marriage is and what partnership is and how men are supposed to be and all of these things. And to not make my story so long, but I ended up in a 11-year relationship that ended with this person who was supposed to be my safety, my protector, my everything. It ended with him pulling a gun on me and my sleeping 5-year-old. And he held the gun 2 feet in front of my face, and he told me he was going to kill me. And it was the scariest yet most freeing moment of my life, because it then sent me on this journey of healing and really discovering the truth of not only who I was, but the truth of what relationship could be, and diving into the deep healing work. And we're very passionate about the masculine feminine dynamic and polarity. And to me, that is the root of a healthy, lasting, connected relationship, is understanding polarity and understanding trauma. And so it led me into I was thrown into the dating world in my 30s. And that can be interesting, as we both know, we both were there. I was thrown out there, and I had anxious attachment and all these different parts of myself that I did not understand. I didn't know what that was. And till finally, fast forward, I met this man who I would say if my job was to talk about this man, I would literally be a billionaire, because
Yeah.
my favorite thing to do. But he was the first experience I had with healthy, safe masculinity, and what that did for me in a relationship, to be able to soften, to be able to surrender, which I know a lot of women have a hard time with that word, but surrender to just feeling peace even. I didn't even know what that felt like.
Yes.
And this man helped me understand what peace in relationship was. And since then, it's just been beautiful, from going from something that is taught as normal today of, oh, this is just how marriage is and this is just how men are, to now being in, no, this is what marriage is. This is what connection is. This is what healthy masculinity is, and a polarized relationship. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like, right precipitating Henry,
Mm-hmm.
like you were working through your trauma, you were doing the work. So what would you say that there was anything pivotal, that some
moment or
some moment,
yeah,
or
yeah,
many
no,
moments that made you open to him, to a safe person?
Absolutely, because I wasn't open at the beginning, as it was more of a forced energy and this timeline that I thought, oh, everything's supposed to happen in this order, and I'm supposed to be in a relationship, all these things that I had no control over, really.
Yeah.
But what we talk about is relationships are magnifiers, and it magnified all the places that I needed to work on, places that I didn't feel safe in, that I didn't heal. And so each relationship, I learned more and more about myself. I dove naturally into the embodiment of the feminine because I'd been raised in such a masculine energy my whole life, country girl, athlete.
Yeah.
And my whole nervous system naturally gravitated towards that. So I really focused on connecting to my intuition, connecting to my body, and trusting myself, because I always overrode myself. And I think a lot of women can relate to the fact that you get this intuition and it's, oh no, I'm just not going to listen, because you don't like the answer of what that is. And I learned more and more to trust myself. And there was one moment, actually about a month before I met Henry, where I literally surrendered to, it honestly was me praying, saying, God, it's you, me, my girls, and I am open and I am willing to receive him when you're ready to place him in my life. And a month later, actually less than a month, that's when he was like, oh, here's Henry,
And I remember Henry saying something similar, which I'm going to ask in a minute, because I remember you talked about that. But right there, I'm honing in on you, Queen. But like, so when you surrendered, right? How did you move from your masculine energy, or what you were taught, into that feminine beauty, the flowing energy of the feminine? What were the things that taught you that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So at that time, I was in the dating world, and I have these couple of things that I live in, or I was living in. I was like, you know what? I need to remember these three things. And one has kind of like three subcategories, which is one, I have to be willing to get hurt.
Ooh,
Two,
wow.
I have to be willing to hurt someone. And three, I have to be willing for it to work out.
Oh
And
my God. Can we just stop for a minute?
Right?
This like here is wisdom. I thought I knew shit. Wait a minute. That was so simple. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I just got a lesson.
No.
I have to be willing. First of all, I am not willing to hurt people.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to get hurt, but I am willing for it to work out. But that's not possible.
All three of them. And it's funny.
That's so normal for people to think that way. And it's not good.
If one or two happens, it's going to affect the other. And it's not a malicious, we want to hurt someone and we don't want to be hurt. But when you're operating in truth and you're operating from love, it's going to happen, especially when you have such a big heart. That's going to happen. And it's okay to hurt and to grieve. And it's actually a really important process in dating. So that was one of them. That was one of my
I'm sorry. I know this isn't about me, but it is right now, because Terrin, basically, that is my biggest fear. My only reason I'd rather not date than hurt someone.
Yeah.
Because you have to tell people no constantly. Sorry. Oops. Yeah. 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 Okay. Thank you.
You're so
What was the next one?
And it's hard because, especially as women, depending, and this was a lot of work I had to do on myself, as I was a people pleaser.
Yeah.
I hated saying no. I cared more about, I would rather say yes and sacrifice my own needs, my feelings, everything, so that I can make sure that they feel okay. That I would rather do that than, as opposed to setting a loving boundary of, no, thank you, right? It's hard for us to do that. So that was one of them. Two was really understanding polarity, the masculine feminine dynamic, and the power that it really holds. Because that honestly was the most pivotal thing in relationships that I learned, was understanding that. And the last one was operating in truth. And I always say you have to operate in truth 100% of the time, no matter what, no matter the consequence.
Yes.
Even if that means you lose the relationship that you're in, you have to operate in 100% truth of who you are.
Love that. So how did you learn the polarity?
Ooh, that's
I'm not letting you go.
No, that's great.
I got you here.
Honestly, no, it was so good. So it's something like within the trauma world, it takes those new experiences, right? We call them disconfirming experiences. And I hadn't experienced, every relationship, I learned something new of, oh, okay, this isn't my person, but I understand this better. And I like this. And oh, no, I know that's not what I want, right? And so then I had never really truly felt it. But then when I embodied more deeply into the feminine and the truth of who I was and was open, because I actually learned that there's a difference in openness and vulnerability, where openness is I am sharing and I am open without any need of validation, where vulnerability is you're almost sharing from a space of please validate what I need.
Interesting.
It's from Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife, for
Yeah.
anyone who wants to look her up.
Love
But
it.
but when I met Henry, I was in that space of this is me. I'm open and I'm sharing the truth of who I am. Normally in dating, I wouldn't share that. I had a gun pulled on me. I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom. But our first dates, basically in Las Vegas, in the car, I shared this with him openly and just, not knowing what's going to happen, just trusting and surrendering to the moment. And I shared it with him. And instead of what I thought would happen, which is him diving into, oh, you had a gun pulled on you, and about everything other than that moment, he was so present. And he just said, as long as you're with me, you don't have to worry about a thing. I got you. And I just fell into him. And in that moment, that was the moment that I knew, I'm like, this is what safe masculinity feels like.
And what gave you the ability to open to become that way? Was it being in his presence, or was there something prior to that allowed you to do that?
Yeah, it was both. It was both of me doing the work to get to the point that I felt safe within myself
Yeah.
to share openly, because
Mm.
you have to be able to get there, right? And
Yes.
have that. We have our own, we just as we have external polarized relationships, we
Mhm.
have our own internal polarized relationship. And so I had to feel safe in being open, but then he also created the safety and the container for me to share in that way. So
Yes.
it's both.
I love it.
I have a thought, if it's okay, I share it, that came up for me when you talked about boundaries, or talked about, maintaining your inner sense of self. Now, in terms of a polarized relationship and a healthy relationship, safety is the key, right? Like there has to be, if you don't feel safe, you're dysregulated. If you're dysregulated, you're either in fight, flight, freeze, fawn,
Yeah.
there's disconnection, all that stuff. But when you think about it, if I don't have an established understanding of my value system and what the proper proximity, I did it. My second TED talk was about boundaries. It was called love-based boundaries.
Mm.
And it was a different take on boundaries, whereas boundaries are more of, they're not a just a yes or no, they're more of a how much. What's the proximity? And so the reason I bring that up is because, for example, if I didn't establish a proper proximity, or let's just call them love-based boundaries for now, then I'm going to be activated a lot because I'm going to have some sort of, activation or stress response or trigger.
Yeah.
I'm in that state. I'm in survival mode. How can you really love someone if you're in survival mode and you provide a lack of safety? So therefore, your relationship will have a depolarization, will be more separate, will be more survival will be more fear-based versus love-based. Because now I'm activated, and if I'm activated, then you're probably going to be activated, and you have the fear cycle. Because when I'm triggered, your nervous system's triggered, and we go back and forth and back and forth. And so the best thing we can do, or one of the best things we could do, I should say, is to really establish a sense of safety and boundaries, love-based boundaries within yourself of what is my value system? What does my inner circle look like? What do I need? What does she need? How do we honor these things? Because if I don't, some people say, oh, well, I'm too scared to set boundaries. I think it's just going to hurt relationships. It's like, imagine if you're walking down the street and you just park your car in a lot, you park your car on the street, no signs on it. And you show up and the cop's giving you a ticket. He's like, well, you can't park here. And you're like, well, there's no sign. He goes, yeah, but you just can't park here.
Mm.
So basically you're getting punished for something that was never stated.
Yep.
And that's kind of what happens when we don't establish what the parameters are within ourselves and how to love ourselves.
Yeah.
We end up punishing people without them even understanding why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't that just telling like the truth? No, don't park here. Right? Like, I don't like that. Because I feel like when you know who you're dealing with, you trust them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quickly, absolutely agree with you on boundaries. I think some people understand boundaries as walls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like,
A lot of
mad at
times
you.
people say boundaries, and it's like, versus like, no, boundaries actually creates connection versus
Yes.
creates connection,
Yeah. When you relate to the masculine feminine dynamic And I'll give my analogy just for those listening so that they might understand more about what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
I always use the analogy of the glass of water. So the glass itself represents the masculine, which is the safety, it's the structure, it's the certainty. And what does it do? It holds the water, and the water is the feminine, and the feminine is very free flowing and beautiful and magnificent, and it can be chaotic because the feminine is emotion. So, that water is like swirling around, but it's still held in the safety of the masculine. And the feminine desires loving leadership from the masculine. And with that comes loving boundaries with that leadership, right? Because it's the protector, it's the container. And so that guides the feminine on its path.
Yes.
And so when, for example, if Henry sets a boundary with me, I always ask myself, okay, what is he protecting me from? As opposed to it being something that I'm upset that, he's setting a boundary. It's okay, he's protecting me from something and protecting our relationship in a certain way. And it's never I don't know. I think people have such a misconception about boundaries. Like we were just saying,
Yes,
like
they do.
it's this hard thing where it's like, no, it's a loving boundary especially when you come from trauma. I came from an abusive relationship. Henry has his own story, and we both have our activations, we'll say.
Yes.
And he understands mine so well. He has the awareness of mine, and I understand his. And so there's boundaries there. And it helps us love each other more because we understand those boundaries, and that's why they're sexy.
Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book. And then I realized, how is that right? To keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it. So now we have to segue to Henry. Henry, how did you become so great? What did you have to triumph over? Develop who you are.
I attest my greatness to the wonderful women in my life, truthfully. Everyone from my mother to my wife. And so one interesting thing, and for anyone that's activated, when you hear someone say, oh, boundaries, are they controlling us? No, let me just really define masculinity, because masculinity is love-driven and it's safe. So if somebody's trying to set a quote unquote boundary by controlling you, or is fear-based boundary, no, blah, 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 activated, that is not masculinity. No. We're talking about a love-based boundary, not a fear-based boundary, right? Our intention is not what's right. Our intention is not who's right. It's what's right. It's what's going to be the greatest thing to bring more love, more healing, more light, more peace into our lives, more safety into our nervous system. And so if anybody's activated because maybe you've been in a relationship where someone, quote unquote, masculine, but let me just tell you something. Someone that's aggressive is not considered masculine because they're not safe. By definition, masculinity is safe. they're the ones that protect you from the lion. They don't become the lion.
Yes.
You know? And so I just want to say that for anyone that's like, oh, well, what do you mean? It's like, no, like when there's a loving leader next to you, like, and it's not like I'm sitting here dictating anything. It's like, no, we're partners. Yet
Yes.
Karen could look to me to make decisions or lead in love and do these things. And if I come in and I'm like, hey, babe, like, this is what we got to do for the girls and for you. Like, this is a structure we need to build and establish so she could be everything she needs to be. I'm willing to come in and build structure, because if you don't have structure, if feminine's the water, and if you don't have a structure, the river's not going to have a flow. It's just going to diminish and disintegrate, sort of. And this is really important to note, is all of us have masculine and feminine within us.
Mm-hmm.
So the integration process, the polarity isn't just polarity between me and my partner. Polarity is the polarity, the integration between the masculine and feminine within myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm
We
crying.
can dive into that for 7 hours, but that was just a thought that I had, because I know I look at a lot of people that say, oh my gosh, well, if someone sets a boundary, how do you think that's sexy? You might have had an unsafe experience with someone trying to control you. That's not a boundary. That's a fear-based controller that doesn't know how to set love-based boundaries for the sake of not putting up walls, but putting up beautiful infrastructure for the feminine to flourish and to maximize the feminine, not for your own gratification, but how can I hold so much safe space for her that she gets to be everything that she was born to be, that God created her to be, and go out and unleash that so she could feel safe enough to be everything she is. I'm
Yes.
not here to control anything. I'm here to just be a system of support and love so she could be that for herself and for God and for our family. And I could do the same for her, you know, and for God and for our family. So I just wanted to say that, because I don't know, I could hear someone misinterpreting what that means. And it's a scary thing, because some people put the wrong label on things and say masculinity when
Mm-hmm.
no, aggression isn't masculine.
Yes.
You know, safety is masculine.
Yes.
Love is masculine. Presence is masculine.
Yes. You know what? It's interesting. There's two things that come to my mind. One is, and we'll get into your story, but one is that, I'm always saying to people here, would you please operationally define that word? Because like people can be talking like in any kind of relationship, and we're talking about completely different things, right?
Mhm.
Like what you're saying. And then what really hit me, and even, do you know how you just know something in a different way? When you talk, I feel like you guys, both of you, like when I feel like I know something in a different way that I didn't know it. So even though I know it, but now I really know it. So I always, and this is a revelation from me. So I hope any woman who's hearing this, I don't think I'm alone. So I think that women will say, I'm all over the place. They'll say, oh, I'm scattered, all these different things. And I have fell into that belief system at different times. I'm coming out of it now, but my husband, CJ, he made it so that there was like these, we can call them boundaries, or these like beautiful, like he held me in that. So I could be like bouncing off the walls, but he never like thought you're scattered, you're crazy, it's just like it. And then I could be, so it didn't feel shaming. But I think that it's interesting. I think women end up feeling, I know I do, feel badly about myself, like, oh, I'm here, I'm there, I'm thinking, but and even when I first met my husband, I'm like, CJ, I have this to do. And he'd go, okay. And he would get out a paper and he'd go, let's write it down. And then he'd go, oh, the way I see it, what is the most important? And then he would just say, okay, I think this is a good way to go for, and I loved it. He would help me like to organize my thoughts. And, that's not controlling, that's caring and kind.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that actually the most.
Mm.
So, but I'm hearing that as and the other thing was, I noticed he never made fun of me. Like I met him and he like I couldn't find my phone, and it was in my back pocket. There had not been a date that would not have made fun of me for that. Oh, it's in your back pocket, but he was like, oh no, it's, that's fine. That could happen to anyone,
Right.
that may sound little and silly, but that's it for me. That's all I want. So, Henry, would you like to tell us about because I remember you talking about the precipitating like months before.
Yeah.
But who are you? How did you get here? You were in a boy band.
I was in a boy band.
Love that.
You know
Want
what's
to sing for
funny?
us?
You know, I'll just,
The one thing I asked for at our wedding
I'll,
was
I'll
like a reunion of the boy
speaking
band.
is singing in this pitch
Oh
consistently.
my
So
gosh.
I'm technically singing
It
right now.
is. No, can I just say something? Remember that event we were at with the band, the worship band?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy, I can't say F. Holy, were they unbelievable? And weren't you in a band with like some or of them or something?
Actually, no,
That's
I
good.
helped form the band and I do stuff with them. So yeah, but that's we created it as a safe space for people to come in and feel loved and feel safe and feel connected to love of God, whatever your relationship is with God. We just felt there's a lot of people that were like, weren't sure, like I love Jesus, I love God, I'm not sure, I don't know where it is. Like come as you are, just come and feel the love in the room and let it lead you wherever you're going. And so that's
Okay,
kind
so
of
can we go to that? Can I go to that?
yeah,
What is
it's
that?
called yeah, we do it every we might do one in July.
Okay,
The
I'm
band is
coming.
called the yeah, please do. I will send you an invitation for
Will you
sure.
please? Okay, I know this is like
Sure will.
off topic, but
Oh,
No, it's
good.
not. Everything is on topic. I think you know it's funny. Simply, it's so funny. So speaking of worship bands, this hat, right? We're just talking about lions. It says lion on it. If you're listening on
yeah.
the audio, and it's funny because someone could be like, "Oh, does Henry think he's a lion? Is he ferocious? Is he vicious?" One of the interesting things is this is actually an Elevation merch hat. That's from the song Lion. Of it's and it talks about Jesus, but also the integration of masculine and feminine is really the integration of the lion and the lamb within us, where they can lie down together,
Yes.
right? And if I need to come in and be, and that's the beautiful part about it is I have a part of me that's like, if I need to go in the room and tear it up, let's go. If I need to go in and be extra compassionate, if I need to play both at the same time, where what we want to do is not block any part of ourselves, but let love lead the way of what's needed in that moment. Because if I'm going to be an effective leader, for our girls or for my wife or for anybody, and I want to be able to have self-control of what's needed at that moment. And I know we're gonna go to this principle, and I'll share my story. But one thing I've learned in the navigation of where I'm at is you need three things for the masculinity, in my opinion, to really be able to be establish that safety. And what led me to it was before I say those three things, I used to be really passive. My nickname was passive. I would never say how I felt. I was so worried about what people thought of me. And a lot of it's trauma growing up, right? If I spoke up when I was a kid, my father would get mad. I would lose connection and safety from my caretaker. So I learned if you speak up, Henry, you're not safe and you're not loved. So don't speak up. So what did I do? So passive, what do you want to do? I don't know, whatever you want to do.
Yes.
And people would step all over me, and I'd be like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. Freedom is such a value for me. And I realized I was caged. I was riddled with fear. I had this internal cage that like I knew I was made for more. I knew I was, but this resistance felt overwhelming, this invisible barrier. I was trying to run with a parachute just sucking me back. And I was like, there's gotta be a way to change this. And so at 17, funny enough, someone put a book in front of me. I was like, I don't really read these books, but I was flipping through it and I read the questions on the back of the page. And I was like, I can change. Like, I don't have to stay like this. Like, there's hope. And I was like, if there is, I need to figure this out. Obsessed. Started doing the work over and over and over and over again. And I mean, years of work, right? Going to every certification I could do. And I became that mad scientist where like I would study something, I would try it on myself if it worked, I'd do it on a few people, and then I would teach it. And at the time I was in a boy band too, funny enough. And we're on stage and I have this microphone and I'm like, I literally can say a lot of things and people just cheer. I was like, you could say a bad word and people are like, yeah. You could say, let's all get drunk. Everyone's like, yeah. Or you could say, let's love each other. Yeah. Let's go make a difference. Yeah. It's like, it's momentum and energy, and you're with a crowd and there's a synergy. And I was like, this is a powerful tool. And I want to help people because I knew that if I could change, anybody could change. And I hated the fact that I felt so caged and suffered inside quietly with a smile on my face,
Yeah.
right? And everyone's like, "Oh, Henry's so happy," but nobody knows like how insecure I am and running around. And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, great, people pleasing all the time, yeah." And it taught me a lot of great things I still use today: how to read people, how to navigate the room, how to step into that. But
Yeah.
when it's led by fear, it keeps you caged and it becomes your downfall. But when it's led by love, it becomes your superpower, right? And I was telling Alison earlier that in this process of writing 2 books, I'm not done yet, writing one, then felt inspired to write another one first. You know, I put my laptop down and what I was doing writing, and all of a sudden I felt like, you're not done, you need to write something down. And I was like, okay, well, what is that? So I get up and the message came to me and it said, your weaknesses are your strengths with fear attached to them.
Mm.
And I was like, well, what does that mean? You know, and for me, my weakness of learning how to read people and being a chameleon, when it's driven by fear, I become a people pleaser. But when it's driven by love, I can walk in a room and know exactly what that person needs and be able to like help understand them at such a deep level that it becomes a healing thing versus a destructive thing for me. And this process of all of it, and I'll get to the 3 things in a second, but it led me to February. I had just finished performing. I wasn't doing much music, but they asked me to DJ this thing, and I went and I DJed this thing, and I was done, and I went to the parking lot with my equipment, and I looked up, and I was by myself. And I was like, you know, you can do some really cool stuff in the world and then go back and be by yourself and be like, I wish I just had someone more intimately I could share this with. You know, I'd lost my mother who was my person, you know, and like I was like, I can't call her. Like I literally, when I first got my TED Talk, I wanted to call her. When I got off stage the first time in front of 40-some thousand people, I was like, oh my gosh, but I couldn't call her. And I had no one I could really share my experiences with. And I love sharing life
Yeah.
intimately with somebody. And I was like, you know what? I need to know what God wants from me. I need to know what I'm missing. What patterns am I running? I need to comb through this nervous system of mine. And so I put my phone down. I went away to this like spiritual place, like across the street from the spiritual place for 2 days, turned my phone off, just prayed and prayed and prayed and meditated, listened to inspirational stuff. And I said, I'm just going to be here. I'm open. I'm open to learning whatever it is I need to learn. I'm seeing how deep in the story we should go. But this peacocks kept showing up for me.
Go deep, man.
Yeah. Like it was really interesting. Peacocks kept showing up for me. Literally everybody randomly. Peacock text message. I walk in this place, there's a mural of a peacock. I go to the front, the guy's last name on his name tag was Peacock. Like I was like, what is God? This guy had a tie that had a peacock feather. I was like, this can't be a coincidence. And I had a playlist that was 10 hours long. It's like a spiritual playlist for me. And the same song kept repeating. And I was like, and like every 2 or 3 songs and I had a peacock on the cover. I was like, what is God trying to tell me? Fast forward that October, I still don't know what it means. And I decide that October, I'm going to do the work on a really deep level for relationships. I grabbed books, I got people involved that I trusted in terms of like coaching and understanding and masculine and feminine dynamics. I went to spiritual places, I prayed, I fasted, I did all the things. And I was going through this process, and October 1st I started, and I remember the day, October 26th, I had a breakthrough. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I've been chasing the best and the worst of my parents' relationship.
Yeah.
Because maybe I want to resolve it. Like the emotional just unavailability of my mother to my father. Eventually it goes there. And I started realizing, and I went back and looked at my patterns of all my relationships and patterns of what I was seeking and patterns of how I was showing up, et cetera, et cetera. And something just shifted inside of me that day. And about 2 weeks later, I knew it was a big one for me because I had a pivot of how I approached things, how present I was, how when I was in relationships, was I running a pattern or was I really present and understanding? I had my non-negotiables, but why did I have those? And 2 weeks later, I'm driving home and I have these 2 friends that I just left being with, and they said, Henry, I think you're going to meet your person when you're just fulfilling the purposes that God had for you. Just when you're speaking, because one of my things are like, you just need to be speaking. And I'm driving home and this lady calls me, she goes, and she's very spiritually dialed in. Like, it's kind of crazy how dialed in this lady is. I've never talked to her about a peacock. She goes, Henry, I need to tell you about the peacock. And I was like, okay, what do you have to tell me about a peacock? And she's like, well, the metaphor of the peacock is it's a bird that was, by God's throne, and God put all these feathers in it. And its main job was to open up its feathers and to share its feathers with the world. And all of a sudden in my mind, I heard, well, how does a peacock attract its mate? By opening up its feathers. And I was like, oh, I just have to shine and use my gifts from a place of love and my person will see it. And that's what my friend just told me. And she goes, and by the way, you're going to be with somebody by the end of the year. She's going to have heard you speak. She's going to know your purposes from God. And she described like the Little Mermaid, and Taryn's a redhead,
Ah,
right? So it's
she
been
is
funny.
you are the Little Mermaid.
And
Yeah.
so
You
like
are.
what's really crazy is, fast forward all the details. I end up seeing Taryn's name on a dating app, and I went to her Instagram and I looked and I was like, it was really funny. And she shared the story, and I had replied to her. And turns out, we'd been going back and forth and we'd clicked pretty fast. And it turns out that like she had been following me since July because she saw me giving a speech, and she like had,
So I had followed him for 4 months. I knew his mission and purpose. I had heard him speak, so I knew who he was. And then I look exactly like the woman
Carmen was
described.
saying. And what's really interesting is we were so aligned in a lot of ways. And I remember talking to Taryn, and I'll let her tell you this. One of the first things I told her on our first date was, what did I tell you?
He said if we would have met 2 months earlier, he would have ruined it.
Yes. How? How would
And,
you
and
have
I,
ruined it?
think- I think when we drive with subconscious fears that we don't make conscious, and
Right.
we don't understand the patterns we run in life, and we don't understand how we show up for things, even though like I was always like I was loving, I was kind, I was this, I was that, but there was a part of me that was seeking resolution to my parents' relationship. There was a part
Yeah.
of me that was, seeking, like, I had grown up with my father, who was a beautiful man and also had a lot of anger problems. And my understanding of masculinity was, oh, I don't want to be like that. That's
Yeah.
aggression. And so I pushed that away completely. And I realized there were parts of me that I had blocked because I was scared to go to, because I didn't want to hurt anybody, like my father hurt my family sometimes. And so I realized, oh no, there's a healthy way to step into leadership, and a healthy way to be present and to do that. And then this leads me to the three things I was saying earlier. I realized that masculinity is really a core of three things. It's power under control,
Mm.
love, and presence. Because, for example, if I had love and I had presence, but I had no power to protect you or serve you, would you feel safe with me?
Right.
No, because you would have to fight the line. If I had power and presence but no love, then would you feel safe with me? Absolutely not. But if I was powerful and loving but not present, I was so distracted, you would be like, if the lion comes, are you going to be able to protect me from it?
Mm.
And I realized it was the level of groundedness and presence and leadership and love, and being willing to access the power, but understand that I could get to control that power when I need to. Learning to embody those three things. And it was like this whole thing integrated within me, where I understood what it meant for me to be integrated with the masculine and feminine dynamic within myself,
Mm.
where where I could hold the space. And so when Taryn was telling me all the stories about, oh, my ex did this and this, that, and this, that, I was present enough to hold the space. I was loving enough to see what she was feeling. And I could control my power enough to say, for her to feel the safety within me. And I was present enough to hear. Who says that on a first date, right? Like, honestly, like, as long as you're with me, you don't have to worry about that. Like, that's a first date. It's kind of like, but the reality is that's what I felt inspired to say, because I felt connected at the moment, because I wasn't in my head getting caught up in her emotions. I was able to stay grounded while she was being the water, and I was able to listen to what was needed at that moment, which was a combination of both compassion and strength.
Yes.
And I'm sorry that happened to you. And as long as you're with me, like, I got you. Like, you have nothing to
Mhm.
worry about. Like, that'll never happen under my watch. And
Yes.
there's a level of strength and love there, but there's a level of like understanding, like, I'm so sorry you went through that. And the insecure Henry would have been like, I can't believe that guy was like that. Oh my gosh, blah, 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 blah. Or me being freaked out and running away. But I was in tune enough to say, there is a woman in front of me that has been through so much, that is such a loving person, and that is so beautiful. And I'm so sorry she went through all that. I'm grateful that I get to be here, even if it's for a moment or for a lifetime or forever, that I get to be here to hopefully be a disconfirming experience for her of what it is like to be a safe masculine presence for her if she hasn't had that. And so it's been a lifelong journey of growth, of
Yes.
overcoming and understanding, what are my fears, what are my resistances, what are my nervous system, programming that operates in this way. And so I'm really grateful for this work. And everyone listening, like, the coolest part about life is your past doesn't have to dictate your future unless you choose it, you know? And there's sacred work out there that you get to do that allows you to be more free and allows you to be more you and allows you to call more love in and allows you to love yourself even more, which is the key, you know? So really grateful for it. And then I got to be with her, and it's a blessing and a dream for me. So
When you describe you being able to be disconfirming, right? Like how, in what ways would you say that you do that?
you know, I know that, like, for example, she wasn't used to, I'll give you one simple example.
Okay.
Sounds really funny. I know for her, she had to previously had to like, if she had to do a lot of the things around the house that like her partner never did, that really just activated her because it didn't make her feel taken care of.
Right.
Something as simple as maybe even the trash, right? Like
Yes.
she didn't take the trash out for like for a week to see if it would go out, and it piled up all over the kitchen for them. And
Mm-hmm.
I was realized, like, you know what, like I need her to know, like, what are the things that really used to activate her, and how do I give her an experience of like, no, I got the things that do, like, you're in
Yes.
a place, you're safe now, like
Yeah.
you're safe. And
Yeah.
so holding that space for her, being present for her if she's activated. And honestly, another one for you, Allison, it's like you're a powerhouse. It's like I'm not threatened by her success. I'm not threatened by her masculinity when she needs to go and handle it,
Yeah.
right? Like, I want you to go and be the best version of you. And then in our relationship, we'll be polarized. Like I'll be masculine, you could step into your feminine, great. But if she's not in her feminine, there's one of two things usually. Either she's in work mode, which is
Mhm.
fine, or she feels unsafe.
Yes. Very true.
And
Yeah.
Being very
so
aware
And so
of it.
if she's in her masculinity and she's like, you know, she's in huntress mode, I'm like, oh, because every form of communication is a cry for help or an act of love. So
Oh,
if
I
she's not,
love that. Say that
hey,
again.
you know, every form of communication is a cry for help or an act of love,
Love that. Yeah.
right? And so if she's not in a loving space, her nervous system feels unsafe. She's crying out for help. So it's like, okay, now I'm with her. I'm not against her. So if I want to fight, she's not the lion. I want to fight the lion for her.
Yeah.
So how do I step into that for her, give her compassion and let her and bring her back home to safety? And in relationships, if you're listening and you're in a relationship, Dr. Bruce Perry gave the 3 R's in order. He says, first you have to regulate, then you relate, then you reason,
Mhm.
right? And so my thing is, I can't reason with her and be like, hey, we're fine, you know, let's just go. It's like, let me bring her to safety first and help her regulate her nervous system. Then let me make sure she feels understood. Now I get to reason with her. But
Yeah.
you step out of that order, it's like the wrong phone number. You brought the first number wrong, you're getting a wrong destination.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'll add to that really quickly too, just for the disconfirming experiences,
Yeah.
even from my side, is you could almost add an R and say repetition of
Mm.
creating safety, like creating those experiences and the consistency of it, because I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to transparency and honesty and integrity. For example, we were like 3 months into dating and my phone died. And Henry gave me his phone and he was like, here, you take my phone, go to Salt Lake, get your phone fixed. I have my laptop, call me if you need me.
Wow.
Like, I had the holy grail in my hand. I had his phone, I had his password, I had everything. That is not a common thing. I'm like,
No.
is this real? Is this like a prank? And what's so funny is I had no desire to snoop through his phone. I only text like 3 of his exes. No, just kidding. I didn't. No, but I
I've
had
been diving in, man.
because he created so much safety for
No.
me and he
Yeah.
just was fully transparent and loving and honest, but he was consistent in the repetition of creating those disconfirming experiences for me to
Yeah.
where it made me soften even more. And he never, like, I loved that, because I am in business as well. He is so grounded in his masculinity that he's not threatened by it. If anything,
Yes.
he uplifts and helps me shine even more. And instead of it being a threat or a fight with each other. And so it's really, really beautiful.
And if you're watching or listening, like it's not like we don't have conflict.
Mhm.
We just early on asked ourselves, how are we going to fight?
On our
How,
honeymoon, actually.
yeah, no, honeymoon. Like, how are we gonna have conflict? Like, what do we do when we're conflicting? Okay, I want to deal with things right away. You need a moment. Okay, that's not gonna work if we don't work through that right now because
Yeah.
I'll be like, let's talk about it. I need a minute. No, let's talk about it now. You
Yeah.
know? So it's not like you're not going to be triggered. It's just you're in a better place to be, as Dr. Frank Anderson and Maston Kipp would say, you can be with your emotion and not in it.
Yes.
You get to do that, have that space within you to do that. So I think that's what's beautiful. Is like you will have things come up, but it's just like if you're with the right person and you're able to talk through stuff, it's like that stuff will move you forward to greater healing rather than hinder you. Every emotion will lead you to your freedom or keep you caged, so.
Here's the thing. If there's anyone who had a reason to hate men, if there's any person, it would be me.
It would
I
be.
would be like the poster child. However, I'm so the opposite. Like I champion and believe in men so much. And I believe in marriage and I believe in what relationships can be because I experienced the darkness. I experienced the war. And there's so many teaching right now that marriage is war and it's a fight and that battle that you're talking about, where in reality, marriage is not that. And it should not be that. Healthy, it's are you operating in love or are you operating in fear? And when we have been raised to fear or live in fear in both the masculine and the feminine, then that's what you're going to attract and that's what you're going to find. And so, but when you're operating in love, that's the harmony and alignment balanced within your relationship. And that's our goal. That's, I have something called the Queen Kollective where we help women deeply embody the feminine and overcome trauma because that's the root of it, right?
Yes.
And the more deeply we embody our core energy, so like for me, the more deeply I embody the feminine, the more attraction and polarity we have in our relationship, the more embodied that Henry is in his masculinity, the more attraction there is in our relationship. And it's rooted in love. It is rooted from a space of love, not fear.
Yes. And I want to thank you guys for being here. And if you could just quickly say, it's all going to be in the notes and everything, but just say where people can find you, because people can come to both of you to get healing. So where would they each find you?
Oh, well, thank you, Alison. We love you so much and are so grateful. Mine would be just like what Henry said on Instagram is at the Queen Kollective. So it's the Queen and then Collective with a K. And that's where we do most of our stuff. And then we also are launching masculineandfeminine.com as well, which is really cool, which is going to be more geared towards relationships and
or calling in relationships.
Calling in relationships, all of that stuff. So.
Are you going to do things like where people can come to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited.
And then we'll do the worship. Yeah, we'll do
all
we'll
the
do that
things.
too.
We'll do all the things. But yeah, and
Yes.
I'm at Henry Ammar, HenryAmmar. One last thing, if you're listening still, thank you for listening this far, and there's hope. I promise, if you feel hopeless, like there's hope.
Right.
I was hopeless for a while. Like I promise that all you need is that one right person and you're good. Or if you're in a relationship and it's hard, there's hope. Like find a way to heal the past and get into a space of love and miracles happen. So I just wanted to share that to anybody that feels hopeless. Thank you for listening.
Yes, it's a wrap. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.